Welcome to episode 306 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the super clipping edition of the Grip Strip Podcast, an ode to the phenomena that's going on in Formula One now, amongst other things with the new rules and regulation changes. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host. And as always, I'm with my co host, the iRacing Indy 500 champion, computer genius, a gentleman and a scholar. His name is Joshua Fine. What's going on, brother?
Hey, doing great, Phil, of course. Yeah, F1's back, IndyCar's back as well, NASCAR's back, so the whole slate is here. And yeah, certainly in F1, a lot of super clipping there, but there's no super clipping here on the GSP.
Definitely not. No super fakes in terms of trades that are going on in the NFL, though it looked pretty real and crazy to think. But um, Josh making a funny because he knew that there were Jets fans in our league chat, so that was a good one. He had me going too. I'm like, God dang, that is a crazy trade. But um, yeah, we're gonna talk. I mean, NFL free agency is going on today. It's on Monday the 9th. Uh, Mike Evans is signed with the San Francisco 49ers for 3 years, so I'm definitely excited. They signed some tackle to Jacksonville. Did lose Travis Etienne, but looks like they signed other pieces, kept corner. They got some other things going on. We'll see where things go in regards to the show, if we can kind of sandwich that in. We have IndyCar, we have a Cup and O'Reilly series at Phoenix, all of those. So a great weekend for Penske and then also JRM. The Australian Grand Prix, first race of the season, went basically how we thought it would. There were certain interesting elements, though. Uh, Busy GSP roundup, Supercross, F2 and F3, Supercars. Those last two were at Melbourne with the Formula One Daytona 200. Historic win there for that race. NHRA opened their season at Gainesville. Rally Kenya will be this coming weekend. Indy Next will be at Arlington, and F1 Academy at Shanghai, which is a lead into the Chinese Grand Prix. Picks are picks for IndyCar at Arlington, which will have single car Fast Six qualifying for the first time ever, weather permitting. Cup and O'Reilly at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway, and we'll also, of course, as always, have Josh's Sim segment talking about all things going on iRacing gaming and call it a day. So, yes, let's go to the race at Phoenix, the Good Ranchers 250. Taking my notes I did for the 5 Things video. So, Joseph Newgarden used fresh tires late in the race, plus damage for Christian Rasmussen, who had dominated the race, was able to take advantage of newer tires on against Kyle Kirkwood, who ended up leading 47 laps. His teammate David Maluka led 73 laps, but in the end, once it came down to it, Joseph Newgarden gets the win. The New Age Rick Mears has won. It's his 33rd career win. His last 11 wins have been on ovals. Newgarden is the first points leader not named Alex Palou since June of 2024. Coming off of hard charger of the race at St. Pete, 23rd to 7th. So that was great performance at 5 pit stops relative to Kyle Kirkwood's 3. It was a really, I mean, the race itself was pretty interesting. They're able to race all over the racetrack, multi grooves. Rasmussen was driving on the ragged edge the whole entire day until Will Power put him in the fence and probably cost him the win there. I mentioned Newgard and Kirkwood Malukas on your podium. Malukas winning his first career pole, led the most laps in the race at 73. Pato Award was fourth. Marcus Armstrong rounding out your top five. Alexander Rossi for ECR kind of salvaging the day. Scott Dixon from 15th to 7th. One of four drivers who came from outside the top 10 to finish in the top 10. Scott McLaughlin, Green Rehall, who started third, and Kiffin Simpson, who started 19th and finished 10th. Christian Rasmussen ended up 14th, next to last car on the lead lap, led the second most laps of the race, probably should have won this race, but, the contact with Power relegated him there. Power ended up 16th. There were 565 on-track passes. 11 drivers led the race. So, I mean, this was definitely an entertaining race. I hope it means it's a harbinger for things to come. I mean, there's, in terms of other ovals that they have later this season, I think and then on the flip side of what happened for Newgarden is Alex Palou. Wrecks 21 laps into the race, cleared himself across the nose of Rinus VK, the Juncos Hollinger driver. Basically ended both of their days. I mean, VK was able to keep going. For Palou, it is his worst finish since Detroit last June and his first non-top 10 since Toronto last July. His efficiency is part of why four-time champion, 3 consecutive championships, etc., etc. I was literally looking back at a hit I did with Tom Horrocks on the monkey seat from I don't know how many years ago. It's like 5 years ago. And it was after Alex Palou's first win. And I'm like, that is crazy to think about 5 years ago and where he's gone now to 20 wins and 100 starts and all this stuff. But he did not have his best day at Phoenix. I mentioned Rasmussen, Malukas. So, I mean, it was definitely a good show. I think with it being earlier in the day, that also helped. It made tires actually matter. Also, the fact that they didn't insist on going down below the apron was good for the drivers and for the cars. I'm thinking maybe if NASCAR actually had a clue, maybe they would do that too. But we'll get into that later. But yeah, I mean, a lot that went on there. 2 races into the season, second of 3 races to start the year, back to back to back. And it was a great opener, really, to start that weekend with that race. And good qualifying, entertaining qualifying, but a really entertaining race. And opportunity for Penske now after what was a terrible year for them last year, the worst year they've had in many, many years. 2 cars on the podium, all 3 in the top 8. Maybe it's a little too early to say they're back, but they seem to be on pace and in the mix at St. Pete. You're going to a new track this coming weekend. A lot of opportunity there and very early days in this IndyCar championship, but it's very busy and you don't want to give up any points when you have an opportunity. And for Newgarden, he went out there and took it when Rasmussen wasn't able to get the job done.
Yeah, for Newgarden, the opportunity struck late in the race, especially with what the incident with Will Power and Christian Rasmussen there, but also struck an opportunity in the points lead as well with Palou surprisingly not finishing this race and Yeah, it was an entertaining race throughout, lots of passing throughout the field. If it wasn't up front, you definitely saw it throughout the field up there. So, yeah, it was really entertaining, like you said. I think another factor in that, like you said, it was during the daytime, right? Remember the previous IndyCar races in Phoenix under the new Phoenix repave configuration. Those were all at evening or at nighttime, so definitely a different dynamic there here at Phoenix for that. So, not only that, but the fact that they paired up with NASCAR again with the Cup Series and the O'Reilly Series here at Phoenix, I think that was, honestly a great plan. I think it definitely boosted the attendance there. They didn't have as many merch trailers as maybe what they could have had, but definitely for IndyCar, I think gets the attention on them, and also helps NASCAR in a way too there. And I think both series benefited from having one weekend. Now I saw people were like, "Oh, we should have more races like that," and yeah, I agree. But I think you also have to have one. I think one or two at maximum. Otherwise, you start to dilute it and stuff. Then it gets old. But yeah, I mean, I definitely enjoyed that dynamic throughout the weekend between the two series there. But as far as on track stuff, the racing that we saw on track, lots of passing, like I said. But Christian Rasmussen, what we saw from him at Milwaukee Mile last year to what we saw on Saturday. He's definitely a guy who's a formidable force for sure on short ovals. As long as ECR gives him a good chassis to a good car to work with there, I think you're going to see him be a contender at some of these short ovals and potentially maybe even at the bigger oval races like the Indianapolis 500 there for sure. But what he was able to do there throughout that race, the field, I think they had a different strategy, and then he just started racing harder than everybody else, and I think kind of changed the dynamic of that race just by driving more intensely than everybody. And you saw even after he obtained the lead, going behind lap cars and trying to pass them as quickly as he could to try and build a gap there and everything. And definitely had this race probably in the bag at the end, but Will Power, of course, and him got together. Kind of looked like similar to that move with Alex Palou and Rinus VeeKay at the start of this race. Both incidents had a driver coming off of corner exit on the outside or oncoming on the outside, and the guy who was in the lower lane drifted up either unaware or trying to project position and ended up making contact with that car on the outside, and they both get into the wall there. Unfortunately, for Rasmussen hit the wall square enough where he could keep going, but it definitely affected the handling there. And you saw after that yellow, his car's handling wasn't the same, even though he was able to hold on to lead for a bit. Just wasn't enough for him there. Although even if he didn't have damage, well, they wouldn't have caution if that didn't happen. But even if he didn't have damage, I think maybe even Award or Newgarden would have been one of the guys that won that race. But it's kind of a different dynamic. They were talking about comparing it to what you see in NASCAR. Logano was on the broadcast there and talking about how at least in Palou's situation, there could have been a situation where the spotter could have notified and said car outside there. But just not enough time, I guess, for him to realize that there was somebody on the outside, and he gets into the wall. And for the first time in quite a while, Alex Palou is not the points leader in IndyCar, so I'm sure it'll be a temporary thing. I'm sure they'll get back right to it here, street course at Arlington and everything. But for early in the season, does provide a little bit of drama. And of course, as the season goes on and other teams are able to figure out a way to keep up with Palou, that's one race that you look back on and potentially look at that as something that could have changed the championship. And right now it's only 2 races in, so there's not that big of a deal. But all the points matter. So certainly that's one that they probably would have liked to have back, and everything. So same deal for Will Power. Opportunity for first win in Andretti after leaving Penske, and then gets too high into the wall, and him and Rasmussen get together there and changes the dynamic of that race as well. So because that race probably would have gone green to the end if that incident didn't happen, I'd say. But it was definitely a great race throughout. Of course, lots of authentic passing opportunities in an open wheel race on that day on this Earth. So yeah, definitely enjoyed watching all of that throughout the day. So looking forward. Hopefully we have more of the same action on short ovals later in the year, and hopefully we're able to maybe add another short oval onto the schedule in the future, say like New Hampshire or Richmond or something like that. So or even Michigan if they figure that out. But yeah, it was definitely a great race to watch on Saturday for IndyCar, and definitely probably one of the early candidates for race of the year, I'd say.
An opportunity to be that. I mean, they have a lot of big ones. Of course, Indy being the biggest one coming up here in a couple months' time, but definitely a good one, and a way to go and kind of bounce into what is the momentum of the series, what they want, to have a lot of eyes on them, knowing they have that from this weekend's race. They announced the Freedom 250 in Washington, D.C. for the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Ratification and Constitution will be a 1.7 mile, 7-turn layout around, the Capitol, the National Mall, down Pennsylvania Avenue, and through. They'll go past the Hirshhorn Museum, the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum. There, so there's definitely a very scenic route. So we'll talking about fan accessibility. That's funny. The standings in the championship now after the first two races. Newgarden takes the points lead over with 78 points. Kyle Kirkwood is second with 73. Scott McLaughlin in third with 66. Pato Award fourth with 63. Has two top fives to start the year, along with Kyle Kirkwood. Alex Palou falls to fifth with his issues on Saturday. Malukas moves up to sixth. Lundgaard, Armstrong, Ericsson, Rossi round out your top 10. Of course, Dixon had issues at St. Pete, so he currently is in 13th place. And what is it, about 50 or 40 some odd points out at the moment early on in this season. Rasmussen, after ending up with that issue, currently stands 18th, just behind Roman Grosjean, who didn't even start the race on Saturday because he had issues. So, okay. All right, let's move forward. The Cup Series and Xfinity or O'Reilly Series were at Phoenix. Kurt Busch again named co-Grand Marshals for the Goodyear 400. That's cool. So going through about Straight Talk Wireless 500 at Phoenix, it was Christopher Bell who dominated the race, but a late race caution and pit stop sequence saw Ryan Blaney take 2 tires to Bell's 4 and end up winning his second consecutive race at the Mile Oval in Arizona, and this time had to hold off Christopher Bell. Was I mean, they had issues on pit road all day. Ended up having to go to the back twice with loose wheels and came back to the front. Won stage one. Bell won stage two and finished second in stage one. So they were the two best cars, honestly. We'll mention Joey Logano later in more detail. He started on pole and finished third in both stages. Austin Cindric was another one who had some stage points, but we'll mention them more in detail later. But really, that was it. I mean, Blaney and Bell were the two best cars. The Gibbs cars were up front all day. 2311 didn't have that outright pace, but they were top 10. Hendrick with Larson and Byron at least had something. Elliott got involved in some of the accidents that took place. Shane Van Gisbergen, of course, who's had a great start to the year, was able to recover and get an 11th place finish. So, I mean, Blaney ends up having to make a comeback, the 2 versus 4, a lot like last November when the 11 team decided to go for 4 while the 5 team went for 2. That track position was the difference in the championship after Denny Hamlin had dominated the race, and the cut tire and in the wall that Byron had, which that caution that ended up deciding it really. Similar kind of incident took place, much harder wreck, I think, for Chase Briscoe, continuing a brutal start to the year for the 19 car, third 37th place finish or whatever, 4 races. So pretty god awful. But yeah, I mean, Blaney, Bell, Larson, Keebler, Gibbs, Hamlin, your top 5, Wallace, Byron, Reddick, McDowell, Arizona native, Eric Jones, that Jones boy, actually getting a top 10. So Penske gets a sweep. There was 25 cars on the lead lap, and there were 25 cars on the lead lap, and then after that, there was only really one other car that was running. It was Chastain, who was involved in one of the multi-car incidents that were triggered by Joey Logano. But Anthony Alfredo, who was subbing for Alex Bowman, who was suffering from vertigo, ended up 33rd after being involved in one of those 2 wrecks. Logano ended up 31st, Cindric 34th. Briscoe, as I mentioned, finished dead last, 37th. Was running up front prior to his tire failure or mechanical failure, whatever it was, that ended up sending him into the turn 3 wall and destroying his race car. But I mean, there was tire issues again. Bozy did a video on the Dirty Mo, whatever that other channel is that they have, and talking about what the teams are doing with the tires, basically saying it's the teams. To me, at the end of the day, if you're not going to allow the teams to make some of the other adjustments that they need to make the cars actually drive better, they put so much emphasis on Badger to make a tire, but then they want to mess with the tire when they already know that Badger is not exactly known for making the greatest product. I'm sick and tired of the bullshit with them and how they, for years, have made kind of like a mid-range product they have exclusivity. So the notion is they should be able to test. and they should be able to figure out some of these things. Now, I would also say the way this car rides and races is bad. It also probably, you add the notion of having the insistence of cutting that dog leg. I think that's another thing that's dumb. They took all the character out of the track, and they paved the whole entire goddamn place, and it's like the track looks so goofy now. And it's like, and it just seems dumb. Just it's almost like it was like an incomplete project. Like in the end, they'll be like, "Oh, we did this infield redo, and you were able to go there last year, I know, and you were able to sit in the grandstands. I basically moved all the grandstands to turns 1 and 2. It used to be an open area there. All the grandstands are really on the front straightaway and back the old front straightaway, and now the back straight, which is a pit straightaway. They could have done any number of things and altered this track with all that space that they had, and they probably did about as poor of a job as possible to just I don't know for what, an infield section, and to just move some grandstands. It makes no sense. The way the pit road is laid out doesn't make sense. Like, it's just a goofy track. It was worse when it was a championship finale. Thankfully, they're not going there anymore as a championship finale. They just destroy a lot of race cars. They tied a record for cautions. But, I mean, a lot there I went over. But, I mean, YRB gets the job done, Josh. And first win for a non-2311 Toyota. They almost Toyota looked like they were about to keep it 4 for 4 this year, but unfortunately for Bell, he wasn't able to get there in time.
Yeah, and for Bell and Joe Gibbs Racing, I mean, they made the same mistake that Denny Hamlin made last fall for the championship there, and granted, it was a longer distance to the finish there than just your green-white checkered finish there for Hamlin. Last fall, and this one they had still a handful, 24 25 laps to go after the final yellow there, and Bell was able to get back to second, but just probably needed about two or three laps more, and probably could have gotten around Blaney if things had held on the way that they were going. But for Blaney, he was, I think he had the better. I mean, Chris Bell was out front the whole race for the most part, so he definitely had the car to beat. But I think Blaney also was right up there on that same level, because had multiple pit road mistakes throughout the race. He had two mistakes that put him in the back, and he had to go through the field twice and pass 49 cars on the day. So for Blaney, a really, really good race, and was able to get back to the front after the final set of yellows there, and take the lead from Ty Gibbs and win the race. So good start to the year for Blaney there, getting a win. And remember, he also won back in the fall, last fall, which I was there for. So I mean, the two drivers that have been good at Phoenix the last couple of years both finished first and second again. So not a surprise at the end of the day there. I mean, I kind of wanted to see Christopher Bell win there, just because I picked him in everything, and I mean, it was looking good there until the end. But a good start for Blaney. Of course, Penske sweep there for Team Penske, so good for that organization there. But a good start to the year as well for Blaney, because he ran pretty good last week at Austin, or at COTA, top 10 at Atlanta. So 3 top 10s in a row now for Ryan Blaney here early in the year. So pretty good run there, and of course now vaults himself into second in the point standings here. So 60 points back from Tyler Reddick here. So knocked down 10 points to Reddick here, which definitely shows kind of the value again of winning here with the amount of points that he gained in one weekend. So if he goes on a similar stretch, of course, then the points gap will be tightened up quite a bit there. So we'll see if he's able to continue this momentum here, going on to a mile and a half, which Penske's been good at before in Las Vegas, of course, in Darlington, which he was good at last year as well, going late in the running there. So a couple good tracks for him coming up here. But yeah, I mean, the racing itself, I mean, was I thought it was fairly good for the most part. But yeah, the tire problems, again, same issues as last fall with tire failures throughout the mid portion and on of the race there once things got settled in there. I mean, I don't really know. Yeah, I think it's just a combination of all factors, kind of like you said with, Goodyear and setup limitations and the car itself and teams trying to push it. It's a lot of factors there, of course, that lead into it. But I guess, I mean, the racing itself, when, you don't have all those issues, I mean, it's fairly good for this racetrack. But yeah, it comes at the cost of popping tires at seemingly random rate for lots of teams there that we saw there, like mentioned with Chase Briscoe, and then also Connor Zilic had an issue. Shane Van Gisbergen, of course, had an issue early on in the going and was able to recover from that. I think Ryan Preece had an issue as well. Tons of cars that had problems throughout the day from tire failures and whatnot. So there's definitely a cost to running the type of tire that they ran here the last couple of years at Phoenix. But on the other hand, saw lots of action throughout the day, lots of wrecks, of course, and you mentioned the track design as well. I mean, they could have left grass. I mean, they had grass on the old Phoenix layout and on the backstretch there, and they removed it and paved it, and now you see the 5 wide, 6 wide restarts. But of course, that leads to a lot of mistakes and a lot of things happening, like you saw with Joey Logano taking out a bunch of guys later in the race there, and then of course he himself got taken out on the front stretch there. So a couple of cautions later. So lots of crashes throughout the day, kind of gave guys opportunities to come back, like you saw with SVG, of course, had a couple of spins early on in the middle portion of the race, but he was able to recover and finished in 11th there. So definitely opportunities there for him to make comebacks as well. Bubba Wallace had some problems as well. I think he got sent back to the rear on one of the cautions and was able to come back up into 6th place there. Eric Jones was almost involved in one of the accidents there, but he was able to come back and finish in 10th place there. So and then also Kyle Busch, at one point he was getting lapped, but came back. Well, I don't know if it's really come back to finish 17th, but certainly 17th pays a lot better points wise than getting lapped in 35th or wherever he was at the beginning of the race for sure. So definitely there's lots of opportunity for people to come up and down through the field, of course. Ty Gibbs, of course, another top 5, top 10 run for him. Of course, being in the news with the Chris Gabehart lawsuit. So in the midst of that controversy, has started to put together a couple of good races for him. So interesting there. And then 2311, of course, but Wallace also got picked up. He did pick up damage in the big accident with Joey Logano, but even with that damage held up, and he was able to finish in 6th place there. So, I mean, it was an interesting race there for sure. Now kind of into the, I guess, more conventional portion of the season here with a lot of mile and a halves and short tracks coming up for this series, and we'll see who's I guess, got the right setup underneath them, and then also for the Chevys with the aero changes that they made to their nose over the off season, to see how those results start to pay off. Kyle Larson finished in third, but they had some struggles and they were kind of up and down through the top 15. Yeah, but used some strategy there at the end of the race with all those cautions to kind of get their way into the top 5 there. And William Byron had some issues as well. He had a flat tire, but he was able to come back and finish in 7th. So decent result, I guess, so far for the Chevys, and we'll see how they do now going into a mile and a half this week with their new aero package. But yeah, it was a pretty good race, or at least fairly volatile, very interesting race here at Phoenix.
Yeah, definitely. Volatile is probably what they are looking for at this point because of their short track package, but just glad it isn't the finale anymore. I think the real pecking order after 4 races where you've had 2 super speedway style races and a road course, this was a short track type package race. The real pecking order, I think, is what we're going to see this weekend, how things go at Vegas, because that's where the majority of the race is. That kind of track will determine the champion. To be fair, the majority of the races are 1.5 mile racetracks in the chase. So we'll see how that goes at Vegas here this coming weekend. Darlington, if you take what Briscoe is talking about, because they're going to be running this package, is probably going to be really sketchy. And it might actually make it a little more entertaining than the typical Darlington race. I mean, granted, I wasn't complaining last September when he destroyed everybody, but I'm sure if you're not a fan of the person that's leading the race, Darlington can definitely be a challenge. The points. Let's get to the points. It's pretty dire for certain people at the moment. I mean, you mentioned it, Josh, with Reddick has 225 points with 3 wins. 60-point lead on Blaney. Darrell Walsh Jr. in 3rd. Elliott's bad run knocked him down to 4th. SVG stays in 5th. Christopher Bell moves up 18 spots. I don't know why NASCAR's graphics says -2 when it's gained 2. And then it's just, well, that's NASCAR for you. I was looking at the math earlier just out of curiosity for Briscoe, because based on where he's at, which is in 33rd after another last place finish, he has 47 points and 53, and he's 69 points out of 5th, which is basically a race if you go and win both stages and win the race. So that's essentially one race there. It's not as bad to get to, it's only 47 or 40, or is it 53 to Brad Keselowski. So for as bad as it's been for Chase Briscoe and for some of the other guys, I mean, you have Bowman who missed a race, so he needs a waiver. And we don't know if he's going to come back this weekend. Connor Zilich is a rookie. He's raw. I think this is a learning year, so you can kind of figure that. The likes of Cody Ware, Cole Custer, Stenhouse, Austin Dillon, where is he at? He's right there, yeah. So, I mean, those are the kind of guys that you figure would be down here. But, Briscoe's here. He finished 3rd in points last year. You have Josh Berry, who made the playoff last year, going to defend his first career win this coming weekend. Cindric buried in points in 30th. And then some of these other guys here, The front row cars, I mean, Zane Smith had a bad run this past weekend, so he's fallen back to regression of the mean, I guess. Gagson lost 7 spots, so Gillen gained 4. So, I mean, right now, I mentioned the top 5. Bell moved up to 6. Logano, McDowell, Busher, Larson, your top 10. Byron, Hamlin, AJ Allmendinger, who was involved in one of the wrecks with Joey Logano because he cleared up into him. Hurricane Hocevar, Keebler, Gibbs, and Brad Keselowski with 100 points exactly. 2 points ahead of Suarez, 8 ahead of his teammate Ryan Preece. And then that's right now the cutoff battle after 4 races, but plenty more to go there. So let us move on to the O'Reilly series. This past weekend was the GovX 200 at Phoenix, the second race, a doubleheader. If you went over there on Saturday, you got an IndyCar race, and then had qualifying, Cup qualifying, I think, in between that, and then you had the O'Reilly Series race. Jesse Love had dominated this race, and a lot like last November when his bestie was leading and had won 10 races that year and probably should have won the championship. In the end, Justin Allgaier late was able to go with the restarts and all the stuff that went on. Late race restart with 15 laps to go and make the move around Jesse Love to get his 29th career O'Reilly Series victory. I think about the people who are like the pillars of like junior motorsports, and Brad Keselowski is going to be hosting the download this week because Junebug is on vacation with his family. And I think of him, but then you have to consider what Allgaier has meant, brand professional agriculture, won 1 championship, probably has left a few more on the table. That car, that number, which originally was associated with a sword swallower, has become an iconic number for that organization because Allgaier's driven it and won so many races. He's had Phoenix races taken away from him in the past, so the fact he got this one's interesting. Allgaier gets to win, led 11 laps. Most of this race, in terms of the leaders, everything was very condensed. There was only 2 cautions for cause, and those were in the last 40 laps of the race. There was a 1 big wreck coming off of the wreck between LeVar Scott and the 96 of Anthony Alfredo. Yeah, I'm trying to see where Alfredo finished. If he was spun him out, I guess he got he finished 10th. Oh, okay. He started 4th too. Then there was the big wreck, which took out most of the Gibbs team. Allgaier, Love, Quapple, Sheldon Creed, Sam Mayer, Sammy Smith, Jeb Burton, Rajah Caruth driving for what do you call why am I forgetting what that team is? Jordan Anderson. There you go. Thank you. Jordan Anderson team. I was like, oh yeah, that's he's married to one of McReynolds' daughters now. And did you notice the thing that the Bells, like, I think Larry Mack has Bell's palsy or something going on, because his speech was definitely different. His face also had droop too. So, because I remember the great Jim Ross, the wrestling announcer, has the same thing. So it was something. It was different. And I was like, oh man, Larry Mack. I didn't know he was dealing with that, but he trudged through it because he's Larry Mack. He's America's crew chief. Caruth, Corey Day, Anthony Alfredo round out your top 10. I mean, outside of Sam Mayer, everybody in the top 7 had stage points. Corey Day got a couple of stage points. Clemens, who has been fast every single week, he has that Haas Factory team affiliation, and they've been really, really quick. So that's great to see for him and his organization. Byron driving the 88, finished 13th. Taylor Gray started on pole, led 10 laps, but only finished 15th. Buckshot Jones was 16th, my pick. Of course, they were involved in that wreck that also ended up eliminating William Sawalich. Brent Cruz ended up 18th after starting 5th. So those are the guys that scored stage points. And there were 19 cars on the lead lap there. But yeah, I mean, Jesse Love dominates the race. Sammy Smith won stage 1. Love won stage 2 and finished second in stage 1. But in the end, when it came down to it, on a late race restart, Allgaier was able to get around him there, get the job done. At a track where has been mixed, has been all over the place for Justin Allgaier. One of his best racetracks, but also has had a wide array of results. A lot of them more towards the negative side.
Yeah, and this is a track for Justin Allgaier. I mean, I look at the back of the picks here. I said Carson Kvapil, but I remember when I said that, I was also had the thought maybe Justin Allgaier could pull it off there. But yeah, I mean, Allgaier, I mean, it's been a track where, he's ran up front a lot, has had a pretty good average running position there, but it just seems like there's always feast or famine there at the end, and this one definitely was a feast for him there. He was up there for a bit and, was able to take advantage of the final restart there to, or final run there to get around Jesse Love and take the lead. So, he was able to take care of business there and get him some early momentum here after having some incidents early on in the season, but now he's the points leader by 3 points over Jesse Love. So already a tight points battle if you're already counting that in the point standings for the O'Reilly series there. But yeah, Jesse Love, of course, had a pretty good car. Of course, ran up front, dominated the race, but wasn't able to pull through with the win there. Carson Kvapil, could have had a chance late in the going, led 22 laps, so he was up in the lead there when one of those cautions came out, and definitely kind of didn't play into his hands there at the end there, and he still was able to get back to finish in third place there. So potentially, another first win falling through for him there. So, but they're running up front, so it'll probably come at some point for him. And then the two Haas cars, of course, finishing in 4th and 5th. Another top 10 run for Corey Day as he puts together a good season. Raja, of course, in the Jordan Anderson car, so not in the 88 car with William Byron there, still managed to finish in 8th. So proving that he's for real, I think, in this series. So Raja's definitely gonna be a contender this season, 7th in points right now. So it's definitely an opportunity for him to continue to climb up in the standings for sure. But yeah, it was definitely kind of more, I think, conventional stock car racing here at Phoenix. Of course, not a ton of yellows, of course, until the very end. But it's pretty solid result for junior motorsports fans, of course. And all their drivers did fairly well there. So Yeah, it's starting to be another interesting season here in Xfinity or in O'Reilly's. Excuse me there. So yeah, we got, like I said earlier, got a tight points battle kind of starting to develop here. 5 points separating Justin Allgaier to Austin Hill there. So yeah, definitely a interesting battle here developing. And some of the guys behind them, of course, Carson Quapple is in fourth, Sheldon Creed is in fifth. So guys that we expect to be contenders here in this series, definitely making their case early on here this season.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this season I think was a little more wide open compared to last year. Uh, there's a lot more opportunity, I think, for some of these guys. The Gibbs guys haven't really been able to get set, so there's something to be said just based on that and that alone. From just the deal. Uh, yeah, so I mean, for the O'Reilly series, I mean, you just want to get through this early portion of the season and make what make your, hey, don't lose too much ground in the point standings. And you mentioned some of the driver points. I mean, you look at Hill had that maximum point score at Daytona, and now both Jesse Love and Justin Allgaier have passed him because he's, I don't like how they present the points the way they do in NASCAR. Of course, it has to be, they have to make it that way. And with their deal, but I'm gonna go over to this, so we'll go over to the racing reference. 4 races in. Hill has 2 top 5 finishes with 1 win and a pole. Allgaier 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s. Jesse Love 3 top 5s, 4 top 10s. Best average finish. They don't show the stage wins, I guess, but I think Jesse Love in a lot of ways is trying to prove that he was worthy of winning the championship, and that he didn't just back into it, even though he backed into it. Yeah, you mentioned Quapple. Creed has that win, so 3 regulars have won so far in the 4 races. Sammy Smith, Rajah Caruth, Corey Day, Sam Mayer, Parker Retzloff still in the top 10, 9 points ahead. Oh, no, that's right. It goes to 12. I'm thinking in trucks. Buckshot Jones, and then Jeb Burton tied with Taylor Gray. Taylor Gray hasn't really been able to put together anything. He's only got 1 top 10 this year. Buckshot Jones, the same thing. He's got a 17.8 average finish. So you venture to believe that both of those guys are going to, make some progress moving forward in future races. Star Pole still trying to get his feet wet and understand circumstance. They got rid of Nick Sanchez for him, but because he brought money. Sawalich 18th. Brent Cruz only has raced 2 races with 1 top 10. They mentioned like 30 points a race to be able to make it, even though he's going to be missing additional races here coming up. But an interesting side thing to look at for the O'Reilly series. Nick Sanchez, as I mentioned, the Ford AM Racing team, they don't seem to be hitting on all cylinders. He has a 1 top 5, but otherwise almost a 25 average finish. I mean, you look at some of these other guys. Jeremy Clements has run way better than that. Dean Thompson and Harrison Burton are having a brutal start to the year. I mean, those are, I think that's, Harrison Burton's the worst driver who has run every race this season which is pretty pathetic for a guy who's been in a competitive Xfinity driver and has won a cup race in the past. So Sam Hunt Racing may have probably bit off more than they could chew, possibly, is what this is saying. But we'll see how it goes at Vegas. Maybe they flip the script there. Alrighty, let's go to the Formula One. So yeah, the first race of a new era, new power unit, new aerodynamics, everything. Formula for the Formula One season, the Australian Grand Prix. Saw qualifying was interesting in that Fish Lips crashed. So he ended up having to get dispensation along with was it Stroll and why it doesn't show starting grid. There you go. And Carlos Sainz, whose car had issues in FP3 and they couldn't get it fixed in time. So those three cars needed dispensation to get in because they didn't set a time within the 107% rule. The Cadillacs made up the end of the grid, but considering where they were a year ago to now have a Formula One team on the racetrack is pretty good. And then in terms of the qualifying, the Mercedes, George Russell was able to put the lap together. Isaac Hadjar had his best career start in third. Ferrari ended up being fourth and seventh, sandwiching the two McLarens, Piastri and Lando. The Racing Bulls actually had good qualifying. Liam Lawson and Arvid Lindblad, the one rookie on the circuit this year. Gabriel Bortoleto did not do a lap. I think he had some sort of mechanical technical issue, so he couldn't set a lap. His teammate Nico Hulkenberg, and then the two Haas cars, Gasly, Albon, Colapinto, and Alonso for Aston. But then when it came to the race itself, the start was quite chaotic. The passing early in the race was kind of slingshot-ish between when one was going and managing energy versus the other. The great starts that Ferrari had shown in preseason testing came back. Leclerc went from fourth to first. I think Lewis, if he hadn't been blocked, could have possibly cleared up to second, but then he got held up behind Lindblad early in the race. The Mercedes didn't have the greatest starts. Antonelli lost a lot of space and time. He had wrecked his car in FP3, so the fact he got it to second was impressive in its own right. Let's just go through the result. In the end, it was for Ferrari, he was able to get that initial start, but Russell eventually got by. Antonelli had fallen back, but then made up all that time. Lewis was able to lead a race for the 20th consecutive season in his, of course, illustrious career. But ended up being passed on track by Russell after Mercedes had pitted their cars under one of the multiple VSCs, while the Ferrari team did not, decided not to pit their car under the VSCs. There was one for Hadjar 10 laps into the race that saw him blow up. Hulkenberg never got pulled off the grid and never made it out on the racetrack. Piastri on his reconnaissance lap crashed, so he didn't start the race. Bottas' car quit, and they told him to stop it, and he literally stopped it right by the entry of pit road instead of pulling it off like at the runoff couple of at the previous corner, letting him just drive the car into pit road, which would have left it green. I don't understand that whatsoever for a guy that's won the 10 races. I don't know what they were telling him, that he needed to just stop it right there. It seemed dumb. But that was also a virtual safety car, but then the pits were blocked. But other people had came in. Most everybody had basically come in by that point because of these issues. Fernando Alonso also had issues and came back out and then went back into the garage. Stroll ended up 15 laps down, so he wasn't classified. But in all of this, saying all of this stuff, they lapped up to 7th place. It was a crazy race. Ferraris, it got close there late, but Lewis would lost too much time, had tried to do a tire offset. The Mercedes duo managed the race once they got in front, and George Russell takes the opening race in the Australian Grand Prix. Antonelli finishes second. Leclerc finishes third. Hamilton fourth, and very happy and positive after the race weekend. Norris was 51.7 seconds behind in fifth, the defending world champion, of course, and Max Verstappen was your last lead lap car, 54.6 seconds behind in sixth. Ollie Bierman, Arvid Lindblad, Gabriel Bortoleto, and Pierre Gasly were your point scorers. Just outside were Ocon, Albon, and Lawson, who never featured in this race, really. Williams had issues. Carlos Sainz had issues. He was 2 laps down. Perez finished for Cadillac. They were 3 laps down. Colapinto almost destroyed Liam Lawson on the start because Lawson was just stalled. So credit to him for his reflex. But yeah, I mean, Russell, after all of that, really, that pit sequence and the decision by Ferrari to not pit one or both of them in that VSC essentially decided the race. They thought the tire offset would mean that they would be able to catch the Mercedes, but Mercedes has superior power and management and whatever. And Woody went out there and did what everyone has been saying for the last few weeks he has to do. Just go out there and get the W. And he did so. And Antonelli recovered after crashing and got second. But for Ferrari, they're second best there. We'll see now as they go to China how that with this management and power and all that other stuff, how that'll work at a regular circuit. But at least early takeaways, it was a pretty entertaining race for Formula One. That actually wasn't. That's over the top. They'll say it's artificial, like the same way as I feel like super speedway racing is artificial, but I thought that there's strategy involved. I mean, is it ideal? Is it what you want Formula One to be? I mean, we had a race for about 30 laps. Usually the race is over in the first couple of corners. So for what Formula One has always been for so many decades, at least for a little while, having a little something different, at least for having half a race where there was somewhat of a battle for the lead, was good. And at least Ferrari is not completely on the back foot, even though they can't help themselves on strategy.
Yeah, for all the drama that was taking place before the Grand Prix here, all the talk about reliability issues throughout the field. Of course, Aston Martin with their science experiment of the car this year, all that stuff. I saw one comment online saying, this is probably a huge opportunity for a certain team, but they probably will fail once again. And yeah, that's Ferrari, which of course Charles Leclerc takes the lead from George Russell on the first lap. Excellent start, George Russell. I guess they didn't prioritize the battery really to get a good start there, but yeah, Charles Leclerc gets a amazing jump on the start, gets the lead, and leads the first part of the race. But then, yeah, again the strategy there, decision making, trying to counter the Mercedes again. They tried to make it a one-stop race, and thinking that the tire advantage would play into their hands there by going on the hards. Well, the others were on the mediums, but in the end, just didn't play out because they forfeited the 10-second lead that they had effectively with by neglecting to pit during that sequence of VSC there. So yeah, it was definitely an interesting race. Otherwise, I mean, yeah, the battles up front, it was pretty interesting to, it's almost looking like a kind of like a short track race where you have the top five is kind of under a blanket there. And yeah, with Leclerc and Russell kind of going back and forth there for a handful of laps, and Antonelli and Lewis were able to be in the picture there. Yeah, it was definitely different for a Formula One race, definitely a different feeling. And yeah, it's made it more of a game with the management of when the battery deployed and all that stuff. But yeah, it was interesting for sure. But yeah, kind of like you said there, I mean, it's definitely artificial in a way. I mean, it was almost like, I mean, you say super speedway racing, and then I'll say and we both praised this form of super speedway racing, but it's like, you remember how when we had the tandems, the one pair would have to swap whenever the pusher got overheated and everything, and that definitely inflated the number of lead changes that took place during that era on those tracks. But I mean, it was entertaining as hell, and it was definitely the greatest power to pass that we've ever seen on a super speedway. But going back to Formula One here, it's kind of similar in that regard, I guess, where you get to the end of the straight, and then engine power cuts off to recharge the battery, and then the other guy, if he still has some power, he's able to try to overtake you and everything. So we saw kind of how that played out, and there was a couple of times where I think Russell closed up close onto Leclerc's wake or whatever, and then I think he tried to make a move, but Leclerc was able to hold his position on the outside there. So in a couple of those corners. So yeah, it was definitely interesting for sure. But yeah, I just and I saw the quote from Leclerc saying comparing it to a mushroom from Mario Kart there and everything. But I don't know. I mean, for me personally, I mean, I don't know how much I really like that, because it was for sure, it was kind of interesting to start. I was like, wow, what an interesting start there. It took me aback there. The Russell not taking off as quickly there, and then of course the kind of the fiasco behind them with Franco Colapinto and Liam Lawson there, that deal. So yeah, it's all definitely interesting, but yeah, I don't know how much I really, I mean, granted, if we had the old way where it was with all the power and stuff, then yeah, the race would be probably over in the first corner or two of that race. It would definitely be a more traditional F1 race. So I mean, it's pick your poison, I guess, here with the type of racing that we have here, or that we've seen so far, and it's only the first race, so it'd be interesting to see how especially with the super clipping and all that, how that plays out later in the year. When we go to circuits that have longer straightaways, like Monza or Baku, especially Baku with, where you're basically flat out, or at least in the old car, you're flat out, all the way until turn one, essentially, there. So, places like that, Las Vegas, of course, long straightaway there. I think even China has a bit of a straightaway where you can have that opportunity there. So it'll be interesting to see where on those places where the car that's leading or whoever, like when does the power, I guess, shut itself to recharge and all that stuff, when the super clipping, I guess, when does that take place? Because that would definitely make it interesting where you have, like, say the guy that's leading has that happen, and then the other guy thinks he has a move and he overtakes going into the corner, but when they exit on the other side, it's like the lead never changed. So yeah, I'm interested to see how that plays out. But yeah, also the reliability as well, because we saw with Isaac Hadjar, of course, had the issue with the engine there, of course. But I mean, I was expecting, like, the way people were talking online, I was expecting like less than half the field to finish the race there and just have tons of issues, but didn't really play out that way. Of course, wasn't quite as dramatic in that regard. But maybe later in the year, as teams put in their upgrades and stuff, what will the reliability of the engines look like there? So I think they would get better, but maybe there's the opportunity where things later on could change and we see more issues come up. But yeah, it was pretty interesting there. Of course, I feel bad for Piastri, of course. Home track, didn't even get to start the race, of course. Aston Martin, of course, their issues there with I mean, it's pretty remarkable to have a car that designed by Adrian Newey, of course, one of the greatest designers in F1 history, of course, and it has a car that vibrates so bad that could potentially cause nerve damage after a certain point in time. So that's pretty crazy there. But you saw Alonso, of course, go back to the paddock, I guess, and then come back out later. That was almost like very NASCAR like there, where you come back out for a few laps and then you retire at the end there. So yeah, and then of course Lance Stroll there, of course, had 15 laps to George Russell. So of course, definitely not a good day for the Aston Martin team there. And then of course Cadillac, of course, like you mentioned earlier, Valtteri Bottas had that issue early on, spun out and kind of pulled over and sat there on the pit road entry. And then of course Sergio Perez 3 laps down to the leader. So Cadillac fan there. I mean, for that team, I guess kind of the strategy is right now just to try to finish the races and get established. And I guess at least for Sergio Perez, able to get to the end there. So continuing to build the foundation there. So if you're worried about them finishing last, at least in this race, that was guaranteed to not be the case with how things played out. So yeah, it was definitely fairly entertaining, interesting for sure. So just kind of wait and see how things play out. But it definitely does seem like right now Mercedes has the advantage there with the power that they have in their power unit right now. So we'll see if that continues to be the case throughout the season, or if Ferrari can make it more competitive, or even if Red Bull or McLaren can close the gap there as well.
And also with the power unit, I think the 16-to-1 compression ratio situation that's coming up, the notion that Mercedes is probably trying to build a gap so that if they are affected the most, then they can at least hedge for that relative to some of these other teams. Andrea Stello's whining that they don't have the same spec, even though at the end of the day you're a customer. And I was saying that to myself, and I was like, I saw that online and I was like, dude, you've wiped the floor with Mercedes for the last 2 years, and now you're bitching and moaning that the factory team doesn't want to provide you the same spec. Of course, they're not going to provide you the same spec. Number one, number two, you've been out there. I think him and Zach Brown been outspoken about stuff with. I mean, they haven't said anything about the power unit because they're a Mercedes team, but they have said their things about Toto and Mercedes over time. So, why are you surprised? Like, and then also they had to put in a lot of effort to win that world championship last year because they were in the process of trying to implode and give it away to Fish Lips. And it has a lot of similarities to 2009 when there was a new formula, at least car formula, aerodynamic package, but same power units. And Lewis was on the back foot at McLaren, and they were terrible for a period of time, and then eventually came around, but it was too late by that point. And the team, the Braun team, took off early in the season with Jenson Button and built a gap that, even though Sebastian Vettel and Red Bull were the better team by the second half of the year, they were not going to be able to overcome that with the different issues, technical issues, and falling out of races and the like. It's similar here. McLaren is competitive, so it's not as bad. But it's interesting. I think having technical issues, actually having retirements. I mean, granted, you don't want to have retirements, but having a pace deficit, you have field spread. At least that keeps things intriguing for sure. And then, I mean, for Cadillac as well, to, like you said, not finish last in the race, I feel like that's going to be a regular occurrence. They're not going to finish last in the race. They may not be the most competitive, but Aston Martin, god awful. They probably have the worst car. They have the worst power unit, and they have the worst car. So it's a really bad situation. And there was one meme I saw on Instagram where Adrian knew he had one job to build a car or whatever that would be great for Fernando. It's either build a car that would be great or build a car that would like basically kill Fernando Alonso, and he picked the latter. And I commented on that. I'm like, well, he's doing us a favor because the guy should have retired I don't know how many years ago. And in proxy, he might be doing us all a favor and getting Stroll out of F1 too in the process because of how bad the car is. So it could actually, for as bad as they may be, it might actually be a net positive. Unless you like Fernando Alonso or Stroll, for whatever reason, if you'd be a fan of Lance Stroll, considering how much of a scumbag his dad is and how much of a scumbag he is and how bad of a race car driver he is. But alrighty then. So yeah, we'll get into that. I mean, China is this coming weekend. We had a Triple Crown event for Supercross to lead into their off week at Indianapolis. Lucas Oil Stadium, busy weekend in Indianapolis because you had the U.S. Open of bowling there as well at Woodland Bowl, and then you also had Supercross there just coming off of a couple weeks ago, the Combine. In the 250, Cole Davies won all three motos. One overall. Joe Shimoda finished second in two and third in the last one. And then Seth Hammaker with 14 points finished third. Daxton Bennick Pierce Brown, who was a red plate coming into this weekend, or this past weekend, finished 5th. Jalik Swoll actually did pretty well, finished 8th. The points for the East Championship heading into this time off will Cole Davies gets his first win of the year, takes the lead by 1 point over Seth Amaker. Pierce Brown, Joe Shimoda are tied for third with 62. So a very close battle, only 2 points separating top four. Daxon Bennick is only 9 points back in 5th. So that's a good battle, only 3 races into the East Championship for the 250 there. In the 450 race, Hunter Lawrence ended up getting the victory by winning the third moto, tied on points with Eli Tomac, his championship rival. But the win in Moto 3 gave him the overall. Tomac was second. Cooper Webb tied with Justin Cooper, but even though Justin Cooper won the second moto, they gave the edge to Cooper Webb based on the third moto finish there. And then Ken Roczen was 5th. Malcolm Stewart ended up 7th there, so credit to him. Joey Savacci ended up 9th, even though he had a brutal last moto. Jordan Smith finished 11th. So there's that tiebreaker. I guess, it's the Olympic method. Okay. So the points heading into this off week for the 450s, Hunter Lawrence has won 2 out of the last 3 races. And Tomac in the was finished second and first there. So they're swapping back and forth. Lawrence 4 points ahead of Tomac. Cooper Webb third in points. Ken Roczen 4th. Falling further behind, though. Justin Cooper well behind all of them in 5th. Savacci 6th. Sexton, who's missed the last 2 rounds, 7th. Aaron Plessinger 8th. Malcolm Stewart 9th. Jorge Prado gets himself back into the top 10 there. Dylan Ferrandis missed the race this past weekend, so he's now 11th. You got some of these other guys. Yeah, Jordan Smith is now, he started to run there, and then RJ Hampshire fell out. I guess he had all these guys have had injuries. Oldenburg, first couple of races, he got hurt. I forget who the other beta rider was. Justin Barsha, first couple of races, he had issues to an injury, so that's that. We'll move. They'll be off, and then they'll be back at Birmingham on the 21st, Birmingham, Alabama on the 21st. F2 and F3 were at the Australian Grand Prix. And we'll go through first with F2. The results in the sprint race saw Joshua Dirksen get the win over Noel Leon and Alex Dunn. Interpuvisak, Miata, your top 5. Seb Montoya finished 9th, but that doesn't net you points in the sprint race. Ruben Camaro was 11th, Kushmaini 12th, Emerson Fittipaldi 14th, Colton Herta was 16th. And then in the feature race, Nicholas Soloff gets the victory over Ruben Camara. Lawrence Van Hoopen rounds out the podium. Oliver Gotha, Ritomo Miata, your top 5. Interpuvisak was 6th. Colton Herta ended up 7th after some penalties for some of the guys that were around him. Gabriele Mini, Montoya, Joshua Dirksen rounding out your top 10. The Rodin Motorsports team crashed each other out of the race, which was pretty god awful. The standings, of course, are based on everything. So Soloff leads Kamara, Van Hoopen tied with Kamara, Miata scored in both races, Interpruvasak is fifth. Herta currently is 10th in points, Sebastian Montoya 12th. As of now, the next two rounds will be in the Middle East and Bahrain and Saudi Arabia, though I venture to believe that may not happen. So we'll see how that goes. In Formula 3, the results, the American driver Ugo Ugochukwu from New York was the winner of the feature race. Bruno Delpino won the sprint. Delegny, Badur, Stromstead, Kato, your top five. Giadiz, Wharton, Ugochukwu got 1 point in eighth. Or no, I don't even think they ran the full race. So then it was only the top five that scored points. That's what happened there. Freddie Slater, Teofil Nile, your top 10. Brad Benavides was 17th. Barrichello there, buried. In the feature race, Ugochukwu wins over Freddie Slater. Kato was third, Delpino fourth, Giadiz was fifth, Deligny sixth. Benavides actually finished seventh. Claro, Nakamura, Kalagny, or whatever. Your top 10. Nile had a jump start penalty that knocked him out of the points there. So standings, they have the same. They're only scheduled to go to Bahrain. Otherwise, they'll have to wait till June to race again. Ugochukwu takes the lead over Slater, Delpino are tied for second. Kato, Deligny, Benavides is 7th in points. So we'll see how that goes for him and what happens in regards to their schedule. All right. Let's see here. What are we doing? Okay. We'll go to the supercars at Melbourne for the Australian Grand Prix, their second round of the season. They ran 4 races at the Grand Prix there, which saw Brody Kostecki win 3 of those 4 races. And Brock Feeney winning the other one. So Brock Feeney came off of 2 out of 3 wins at the Sydney Motorsports Park, and got his 3rd win in one of the super sprints. Brody Kostecki gets 3 out of 4 for DJR Team Penske, DJR Team Penske. Falling back into Dick Johnson Racing, Shell V Power Racing, whatever. And then Anton De Pasquale, the other winner so far this year. Brody Kostecki takes the lead in the points over Cam Waters. Brock Feeney has 2 poles. Kostecki has a pole along with Anton De Pasquale and James Golding. Matt Payne rounds out, and Anton De Pasquale round out your top 5. So 4 Fords, then the first Chevy for De Pasquale, Jack LeBrock in a Chevy, Ryan Wood in a first Toyota, Kai Allen, James Golding, and defending champion Chaz Mostert round out your top 10. Next race will be at the Taupo Super Sprint in April, so there will be a while between races here. The Daytona 200 was a historic event for Josh Herrin, winning his fourth consecutive um, Daytona 200, and goes, what is this? Yeah, so that's not what I was looking for. See here. That's not what I wanted, but whatever. We'll figure it out. Yeah. Josh Herrin, who's riding for the Ray Hall Ducati team, was for a race that gets his fourth consecutive win, ties Scott Russell and Miguel Duhamel with the most Daytona 200 wins. Tyler Scott, who had qualified on pole for the M4 X-Star Suzuki, finished second, and then Kayla Yakov, who was on another Ray Hall Ducati, rounded out the podium. The first woman to ever finish on the podium in the Daytona 200, and 18 years old, and she did that. So just really badass there. So credit to her. Credit to the Ray Hall team for being able to put together so many good bikes and get the job done there. So then I'm trying to look where they're, so the Darren Binder, Alessandro Di Mario, so that was the top 5. NHRA at Gainesville was interesting. Saw Austin Prock fail to qualify for the Gator Nationals. So brutal situation, while the Force cars had to qualify on their final run and were able to do so. First race of the 75th anniversary season of the NHRA. Antron Brown won the Top Fuel All-Star Call-Out in terms of Top Fuel. Josh Hart ended up winning his first race for John Force Racing over Doug Coletta. They were running huge times over the entire weekend. In Funny Car, Chad Green repeated as the winner in Funny Car at the Gator Nationals over Alexis DeJoria in her first race for John Force Racing. In Pro Stock, Matt Hartford beat Greg Anderson to get the win there. First win in a couple of years. So that was the top for the first time number 3 consecutive years. Well, no, that's the wrong graphic there. That was for Top Fuel. And in Pro Stock Motorcycle, Richard Gadsden, the defending series champion, gets the win over John Hall, who's part of the MSR team there. So that's the results. Would go through the whole ladder, but I don't really feel like it. You can go and look at it at your leisure if you so choose. WRC Rally Kenya this coming weekend. WRC, let's see. We'll go into that. Rally Kenya, upcoming event, entry list. We'll see who's in. So Sebastian Ogier will race this race. So 5 Toyotas there. Oliver Solberg, Efren Evans, Sebastian Ogier, Takamoto Katsuda, and Sami Pajari. Then Hyundai has 3 cars: Adrian Formeau, Thierry Neuville, and Esapeka Lapi. The Ford Ford M Sport Ford team will have 2 cars, Josh McElrain and John Armstrong, racing in the Rally 1 category. So 10 Rally 1 cars, a whole host of Rally 2 vehicles. It looks like another 10 Rally 2 vehicles. And then, so we'll see how that all goes. It's the Safari Rally in Kenya is very difficult with all the sand and stuff. So we'll see how if overheating issues come into play. Then we will go to Indy next, which ran at St. Pete. So that was their first weekend. Go over that. Okay. They'll race at Arlington, and then they'll race a doubleheader at Barber. Of course, Nikita Johnson got the win over Max Taylor, Imak Kusharik, Seb Murray, Lockie Hughes, your top 5, Miles Rowe, Josh Pearson, Salvador D'Alba, Juan Manuel Correa, Alexandra De Tulio, rounding out your top 10. Was it Enzo Fittipaldi had a rough weekend? You have some other guys that probably want to have a better weekend after a tough start to the year. Max Garcia was 12th there, so we'll see at a new racetrack how it all goes. And yeah, F1 Academy, the first race of their 2026 season. So the Matilda Potts for Aston Martin's driving for Prema. Peyton Westcott, American driver, driving for or representing Mercedes, will also be at Prema. Megan Bruce, British driver, supported by Tag Heuer, will be driving for Campos. Nina Godeman for MP Motorsport, driving supported by Alpine. Alba Larson, supported by Ferrari for MP Motorsport. And then Esme Kosterman, supported by Lego. Okay. Trying to think, looks like a Dutch flag. I was gonna say, I figured that's what it looked like. Then we have Lisa, or you have Ella Lloyd for McLaren with Road Motorsport. Ella Stevens for also for McLaren, but McLaren Octagon, whatever that is. And then Emma Feldmeyer for Audi. That's the Road and Motorsport trio. The Lloyd and Feldmeyer coming back. Alba Larson was there last year. Nina Godeman. Those are some drivers that are familiar from last year. The ART team, Lisa Billard, a French driver, sponsored by Gatorade. Jade Jacquet, another French driver, supported by Williams. And then Kaylee Countryman, another American for Haas, driving there for ART. Then High Tech was Rachel Robertson, supported by Puma, a British driver. And then Ava Dobson for American Express. And there she's American. And then Wei Shi, sponsored by Just Sports for High Tech. So they want to see if they have any other announcements in terms of drivers. We tasked some predictions because it doesn't list everybody, so I find it weird. Yeah, you pulling Palmowski. Yeah. Yeah, pulling this Lee Shalloyd, Melmeyer. Oh, so these are. What'll be the biggest surprise? Who'll be the rookie of the year? Yeah. Yes, I don't have all the information, so that's kind of crazy. You have seats that are open. You have 3 seats that are open, and we're about to race this weekend, so I don't understand how that works, but whatever. Interesting what they're talking about, and all the excitement that what's her name, Susie Wolf was saying for the series, and trying to get a woman into the series and into F1, and then you don't even have all the seats filled. But all right, let's move on to picks. Formula One Chinese Grand Prix, fresh on our minds in terms of what took place last week. Let's see here. You went first last week, so F1 Chinese Grand Prix. Phil is going to go with Woody Russell to win, with Andrea Kimi Antonelli and Sir Lewis Hamilton on the podium. Of course, China was where he won a sprint last year, Lewis, so it's possible there. Those are my picks. I mean, who knows what that's going to happen in this race. In the Australian Grand Prix was hard to describe, let alone what might happen this race with the regular track, but we'll see. What do you say, Josh?
Yeah, I think I'll also pick Woody Russell to win, but I'll say that Charles Leclerc finishes in second on the podium and Kimi Antonelli third on the podium.
There, and Andrea Kimi Antonelli on the podium. I mean, I think there should be other games, like kind of how they do on the monkey seat, where you talk about the futility side of things with like Aston Martin, but I think it's a bit dire considering how bad it is, but whatever. We'll see what happens. IndyCar will be at Arlington, first ever race on this street course. Think about new circuits. Herta used to be good at that when he was around in the Indy cars. Alex Palou wanting to recover. There's any number of different storylines, but you get the first call here. So, excuse me, Josh, for the, what are they calling it? The Java House Grand Prix of Arlington, around AT&T Stadium and also Globe Life Field.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm gonna say, yeah, Alex Palou wins this race and recovers from that crash they did at Phoenix to get him back into the points lead here, or potentially at least. And I guess for my wild card, I will go with let's see, before I say something wrong, I'll go with man, it was. I want to go back to St. Pete, not Phoenix here. Yeah, I'll go with Kiffin Simpson as a wild card. So I'll stick with the two Ganassi's.
Yeah, solid pick there. Simpson in the Sunoco car has shown a progression here. A couple of years ago, he was completely out to lunch, but I think he's starting to figure it out. For me, I am going to go Pato Award. Home state victory for him. I used him in the promotional content. And then, so, I mean, for him and for McLaren, they need to get on the board. Penske's on the board. Ganassi's on the board. It's time for McLaren to make their presence felt in this championship before they take a couple of weeks off, I guess. They're between Arlington and then the Barber race, so it'll be a good momentum if they can go out there and get it done. The standings, just so basically we got 25. So in terms of my wild card pick, I have to say Will Power. I mean, granted, after what happened at St. Pete, I'm not sure if if it's more about it just being very, very wild and wanting to be extreme, or if they'll actually come up with something. But Will Power's had a rough start to the season. I think he will want to do something about that here accordingly. Okay, so now let's move on to Las Vegas, O'Reilly Series, the Laguna. 300, I guess. It used to be something 300. Now it's called the Laguna. Whatever the hell the name is. There's 3 cars will miss the show. Josh Williams has had issues making shows with Steve Addington and company, that DGM team here. So Cole Custer will be driving the 0 for SS Greenlight. Connor Zilich will be in the 1 for JRM with Rodney Childers, Carolina Carports. Chandler Smith will be back in the number 5 for Hettinger Racing. Let's see, Carson Quapple this week will be in the 9 for JRM. And let's see, Chase Briscoe. Wow, okay. Chase Briscoe actually is going to be in this race. I think Wix Filters will be on the car for him. I believe is a sponsor for him because what do you call, Brent Cruz can't race 1.5 mile racetracks yet based on his age. Hank Hill doesn't have a sponsor listed for whatever reason. Harrison Byrne, blah, blah, blah. Number 30 doesn't have a driver listed yet. Rajah Caruth will be in the 32 again for Jordan Anderson. 35 doesn't have anyone listed for their car. Nathan Bird driving the 42 for Young's. Daniel Dye will be in the second AM Racing Ford number 52. Joey Gase driving for himself yet again. Kyle Larson will be in the 88 for JRM and Hendrick. Maggio, Dawson Cram trying to make it with the Harmon 74, former guest on this program. So, yeah, so I'll go first here for O'Reilly Series at Las Vegas. I mean, it didn't work out for me last week in the Cup Series, but I say screw it. I'll say Chase Briscoe wins the Xfinity race or O'Reilly race. I feel like it's going to be a Cup guy. I feel like it's either going to be Larson or Zilich. So that's my pick there. And then points, taking the points into account, trying to see how many drivers have run every race. It's 19. That's another one. That's 28. So 28 drivers have run every race. So I guess essentially 14. So in terms of a wild card pick, I am going to go with Jeremy Clements for the same exact reason as I said for what he's shown so far pace-wise. He's had pace that he's never really ever shown outside of super speedways and the occasional road course. But he's run better than his results show. So Vegas, big wide track, the speed of the HFT cars going over there. It's an opportunity for them to go out there and get a solid top 10 or 15 finish, which would be what he's looking for. What say you, Josh?
Yeah, for me, if you're gonna pick a Cup guy, I'll also pick a Cup guy, and I'll just go with Kyle Larson here to win at Las Vegas here, and then I guess my wild card for me, I'll go with I'll go with Parker Retzlaff here. So.
Well, that doesn't really count. He's 10th in points.
Oh, he's 10th.
Yeah, like in theory, I'm splitting half. I'm taking whoever of all the drivers because I'm not even counting Cruz is not in this race, and then so there's 28 guys that have driven every race so far this year. So I split it down the middle. It's 14. So the break off point is Brennan Poole on the top half.
Okay, well, I'll go the next one down. I'll, Mr. Fast Pasta here, go with him.
Anthony, yeah, well, you picked whatever
his teammate
called, yeah, whatever that team's name is.
Live Fast. No, it's Viking Motorsports.
Viking Motorsports.
Yes.
Yeah. So Anthony, Alfredo, wild card, and as of now, we don't know. He might be back in a Cup car at Las Vegas for the 48, possibly at Las Vegas. And speaking of the Cup Series, we'll finish off with them, our picks for this weekend's Pennzoil 400 at Las Vegas. We'll have 36 for 36. No, or 36 for 40. Nobody going home. No extra cars. We'll have, I'd go through all the sponsors, but I really don't want to. You can go and see it on J-Ski. Yeah, Josh, you can go first there in regards to your picks.
Yeah, for me, I'm gonna go with Christopher Bell again this weekend. I think, they had good track for him last fall. He's contended here a lot, so yeah, I'll go with him again. Toyotas are always fast at this track, in particular. And then wild card for this. Just look at the standings really quick to make sure.
19th and below, basically.
Yeah. Go with, hometown boy here. I mean, he's 20th in standings. He needs help, Kyle Busch. And wildcard status for Kyle Busch, that how far he's fallen.
Yeah, that's pretty weak for a guy who's won 60 something cup races. But hey, whatever. That's what happens when you don't have money and you get knocked out by the grandson of the car owner. So, for me, in terms of Las Vegas, I mean, I'm trying to think of recent. Might as well bring up. We'll go and do racing reference. Because I'm going to need to do this anyways for the Sanders game, where I'm doing terrible in salary cap, but I'm doing well in 5 wide. Yeah, so active driver, yeah, it counts direct, even though he's not active anymore. Yeah, I kind of had an inclination of that. What I was kind of thinking that's where I was going to go. I think it's kind of risky considering Chevy has not been tested on a 1.5 mile track with this aero package as of yet in a race setting. But I will go with Kyle Larson here to win. And since he's buried in points, Chase Briscoe is my wild card, and he finished second in the fall race to Denny Hamlin. So, at some point this has to turn. So, I'm saying this is going to be a very positive weekend. I'm trying to put it in the ether that Briscoe finally comes around the other side and gets a good weekend here. So, and whether it's me being a homer or not, I don't really care. Josh, let us know what's going on in iRacing and gaming in the sim segment.
Yeah, of course. iRacing season 2 2026 just got released, so I just tried to open iRacing here. I haven't updated it actually, so I'm gonna have to go and download that update. But of course, important news, of course, in iRacing is that St. Petersburg is now released. Just saw some screenshots here of St. Petersburg on the iRacing course. We've already seen it on the renders and stuff, but going on online and seeing users screenshotting their run at St. Petersburg or whatever they're driving there. So gonna have to go and maybe fire up real quick and see what that is on iRacing, and potentially probably download that track. So it's gonna be exciting playing that one, of course, after going to the St. Petersburg Grand Prix. So it'd be nice to play that, and gonna be interested to see what series run that track in there. Obviously IndyCar, potentially maybe the Truck Series, or maybe O'Reilly Auto Parts, maybe even Cup, but definitely IndyCar, MX5 Cup, and maybe some of the lower end sports car series running there. So it's definitely gonna be fun to have that one up on there. Let's see, weekly series here. The week 13 schedule, of course, was released, of course, this week. So again, ranked series, NASCAR iRacing series on the Cup side, Street Stock Challenge, iRacing Truck Series 13th week, ARC Cup Series, late model and mini stock, and then MX5 Cup for sports cars, for Ferrari 296 Challenge, including St. Petersburg, Porsche Cup 13th week, BMW M2 Cup 13th week, GT3 Challenged Fixed Series, including St. Petersburg, GR86. Okay, that's another car that could race to St. Petersburg, and a GT4 car also including St. Petersburg. So lots of opportunity here on that. Formula Car Series, 13th week, Formula 4 Challenge, FIA F4 Challenge, uh, Super Formula Lights, also including St. Petersburg, Indy NXT, including St. Petersburg there. So, 13th week, new content feature series is the TCR at the New Nürburgring Nordschleife, and TCR series at the Shiny News Shakedown there. I forgot what car was on there. And then Unranked Pickup Cup for the Truck Series, Delara Dash, the Carburetor Cup, Truck Series, 5 laps to go races, GT3s on the oval. That's another series, so that might be interesting there. 13th week on the Road Series, 13th week Track Day, GT4, TCR, FR500s. That's the Mustang track car on there, MX5, GRD6, 15-minute races. Figure eights on the with the TCR series, GTE cars on St. Petersburg, the Lotus 49 series on St. Petersburg. So yeah, there's definitely lots of opportunity here for iRacing Week 13, of course, with all the updates for season 2 here. So yeah, it's gonna be fun downloading all that, of course, and getting updated on there. So definitely gonna fire up Sim this week probably and get onto that content. Also unrelated to iRacing, Forza Horizon, which is more of a sim arcade game. I think they released announcement this morning, saw this on social media. They're gonna have the Acura NSX and the Acura Integra on there, so I can go and upgrade my car without actually having to upgrade it in real life on Forza on there, which I think is on PC and PlayStation. So I'll have to pick that up maybe. Forza Horizon 6 that comes out in May, so this will be for a few months, but yeah, it should be kind of cool to see the video game version of my own car on there. So might have to go and pick that up, but yeah, should be cool, should be fun with iRacing Season 2 and all that on there. So, and then also, yeah, iRacing Arcade came out last week. Again, that's kind of more of the very arcadey version of iRacing. Kind of looks like mix of like Mario Kart or any of those other casual party games there, with kind of the iRacing dress up there to make it themed to iRacing and stuff. I don't think it actually is really related, other than they've licensed it on the iRacing brand. So that's out as well. That just came out last week, and you can pick that up on Steam, and I think that's also on consoles, so it's on there there. But yeah, as always, of course, probably stream Sim St. Petersburg here soon this week, hopefully, and then some of the other Week 13 fun series and all that, which of course you find on Twitch, UCLR2 on there for the iRacing content on there, and then Twitter, JP Huffine, of course. And call back to the beginning of the show. Yes, seen this fake tweet that it was shared with me about the Jaguars trading Brian Thomas Jr. Of course, had to take the opportunity to send that in the fantasy group chat and everything. So I had a little fun there tonight. Of course, NFL free agencies. So there will be lots of fake news on the social media, of course. So make sure whatever team's got your player or whatever, that's actually the case, and there's not some fake report or whatever, which some of them are easy to tell, but some of them aren't as easy. So yeah, that'll be a interesting next couple of days in the NFL world, of course. And then of course the YouTube page for this channel, for this show, Gripster Podcast YouTube, go on there and subscribe to that. And then of course my photography page, Josh Alpine Photography, on Instagram. Still processing through St. Petersburg pictures, so hopefully have that up there soon and have those posted. So yeah, all 3 racing series that we talk about mostly are back, and they'll be back next week. So we're back into the full slate of everything. So yeah, glad to be here and be able to talk about all of it.
Just as go and work on that, and of course, we're over 300 episodes. I was trying to come up with the number of how many classes I've done for the kickboxing, trying to figure out how I can get to like 500 classes. And I'd have to do, basically one class every other day or something like that, which is pretty extreme, but we'll see. Um, yeah, for me, podcast YouTube page, as Josh mentioned, and handles. You can also find us at GSP 1428. That's my personal page where the audio feed goes to. You can find me at PGMGSP28 on Insta. Barely go on Twitter anymore. PG Matthew 28. Blue Sky, just uninstalled the app. You can find me at philipgmatthew.com on WordPress. That's where the show also goes, and also on podbean.com. As always, thanks, Josh, for all your work and efforts and friendship, and for being sidekick here. Now that racing season's really kicked off, I'm sure there's going to be some opportunities for you doing outdoor go-kart endurance races and stuff, because I have that over here with some of the people that I hang out with at the sim racing place, where they're talking about some of these enduro kart events and stuff like that. So thanks for everything and your takes and all, and thank you for listening to everyone. And you can catch me also on the Motorsports Reports on YouTube, and then you see Microsoft Start and some of these other places. So I'm over there, Motorsports Reports, doing some content for George and Jared. But for Josh, I'm Phil. Thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribe, follow. It all helps. And yeah, we'll be back for episode 307 of the GSP next week to recap IndyCar at Arlington, Cup and O'Reilly at Vegas, the Formula One Chinese Grand Prix, and preview, amongst other things, the 12 hours of Sebring for IMSA and NHRA, MotoGP, Moto2, Formula E, and then triple header at Darlington, the theoretical throwback weekend. Josh's sim segment as always, and who knows what else we'll talk about, but we'll have it here on the GSP. So thanks for listening. Thanks for liking and subscribing, and we'll talk to you next week.